I brought a bouquet to celebrate my wife's graduation. But when the doors slowly opened, I saw her, smiling, radiant, in another man's arms. I froze. My chest sank. The usher looked at me and whispered, "Are you sure you're on the guest list?" I nodded. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. The bouquet in my hands trembled. Red petals shook with every sharp breath. I had chosen them days ago, one by one, held them like a promise, for the woman I thought was my soulmate. I imagined myself walking in, handing her the bouquet, holding her tight, whispering, "I'm proud of you." Instead, just a few steps away, I saw Dominic, the name that slipped into her stories, always painted as a harmless friend. But today, he was there, right beside her, his arm around her, as if the world belonged to them. And her smile, that radiant smile I'd been waiting for all these years, wasn't mine. Applause filled the hall. Cameras clicked. I heard everything, yet nothing. The only sound inside me was my heart shattering. I clenched the bouquet so tight. The thorns pierced my skin. Blood dripped, warm. But that pain was nothing compared to being pushed out of the life of the woman I loved. I remembered the long nights of overtime, cold noodles for dinner, every dollar saved for her tuition. I thought, when this moment came, her eyes would search for me first. But no, her eyes searched for Dominic, and the hug she gave him left me breathless. I wanted to run in, to scream, to ask, "What about me?" But my legs wouldn't move, as if invisible chains held me down. So I just stood there, frozen, with one thought cutting deep into my mind. I don't know when I lost her, but tonight, I knew our marriage ended in a way I never saw coming. My name is Brian, 36 years old. If someone asked me who I am, I'd just smile and say I'm an ordinary man, working in IT, living quietly in a small apartment, in a noisy city. I'm not a millionaire, not the flashy type. I only believed one simple thing. If you love someone enough, if you try hard enough, love will last. I held on to that belief for more than a decade. I met my wife back in college. During a club meeting, I was a senior, helping with tech support for the law club. She walked in, a light blue sweater, hair tied up, eyes shining as she talked about becoming a lawyer. I still remember, I just stood there, staring at her, while everyone else fiddled with the projector. I don't know if it was love at first sight, but from that moment, I wanted to walk with her for the long journey ahead. Those early years of dating, we had nothing, just a folding chair in my tiny apartment, and a $1 pizza from the corner shop. Once we couldn't afford a table, so we spread an old blanket on the floor, ate there, laughing, like it was the grandest feast in the world. She talked about cases she read in books. I talked about the lines of code I was writing. We sat close, sharing dreams and dry pieces of bread. I still keep something from those days. A worn handkerchief she gave me. She said, "Take it with you when you work late." So I'm there with you, a little. I carried it through years of deadlines, cheap coffee, overnight shifts. Whenever I was tired, I touched that handkerchief, reminding myself every sacrifice was worth it. When we married, I made a promise. I'll take care of everything, so you can focus on school. Leave the rest to me. And I kept that promise. 2 jobs, IT in the day, freelance projects at night. Some nights, I fell asleep on the keyboard, waking with letters imprinted on my face. But as long as I saw her smile, clutching her thick law books, I found the strength to go on. I still remember one night. After passing a tough exam, she ran home, threw her arms around me, and whispered, "Brian, I know I chose the right man." I believed those words like a vow. I thought nothing could break our love. The early years of marriage were hard, but warm. A cramped rented apartment, shared laundry room with the whole floor. But we made it a home. Some nights, she studied while I cooked noodles. We ate together under the dim yellow light. We once toasted with plastic cups in a park, cheap wine in hand, and promised, rich or poor, let's never forget tonight. I carved that promise deep into my heart. But slowly, cracks began to show. In her final year of law school, she came home later and later. Always study groups, always projects. I wanted to believe, and I did. But some nights, I made dinner, lit a small candle, waiting. By midnight, the candle burned out. The food went cold, and I ate alone. The empty chair across from me felt bigger every night, swallowing the whole room. Then came the little details. Once, I saw a faint lipstick mark on her shirt. She said it was from hugging a classmate. I laughed, nodded, but inside something ached. Another night, her phone buzzed after midnight. The name lit up, Dominic. She turned it off quickly, said he was just a group mate. I stayed silent. Then the credit card bill. A hotel charge. She said she booked it for a friend. I didn't press further. I told myself I was paranoid. And I tried to believe. I thought, if I sacrificed enough, she'd stay. I thought, if I loved her with everything I had, she'd realize. But I didn't understand. Love isn't math. It doesn't add up. If only one person is trying. If I had looked closer, maybe I'd have seen. Her eyes were drifting elsewhere. One late night, cleaning her study desk, I found a small card tucked inside her law book. A note of encouragement. Signed, Dominic. The words were messy, rushed, but intimate enough to make my chest cave in. That card lay inside the very book I had spent a week eating instant noodles just to buy for her. I stood there holding it, hands shaking with anger and hurt. I asked myself, since when have I only been her wallet? Since when did my presence fade, enough for someone else to step right in? That night I lay beside her, listening to her steady breathing, while inside me, chaos. I didn't know when I lost her, but deep down, I felt it. Something beyond saving was on its way. And I was right, because the light she was following carried one name, Dominic. A small card, messy handwriting. You can do it. Don't forget who always believes in you, D. It was tucked inside her law book, the very one I had nearly broken myself to buy. At that moment, I felt like something deeply mine had been stolen. I put it back in silence, said nothing. That night, I lay next to my wife, unable to sleep. She breathed softly, peacefully, but my own heartbeat pounded against my chest, as if warning me something was about to shatter. The next day, I tried to ask, casually, "Hey, I saw a card in your book. Who gave it to you?" She paused, then gave a faint smile. "Oh, Dominic. He writes those for everyone. It's nothing." Her words sounded light, but they weighed heavy on me. I wanted to ask, then why is his the only one I see? But I swallowed it back. I was afraid one more question would close the gap between us forever. So I chose silence. A few days later, I almost believed again. That night I came home late, hungry, exhausted. But on the table, my favorite roasted chicken. Beside it, a note in her handwriting. "I know I've been busy lately, but I still think of you, L." I stood there, staring at it. My heart warmed, pulled back to our old days. Maybe she was trying. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But that warmth didn't last a day. The next morning, clearing the table, I flipped the note. On the back, another message, different handwriting. "Save me some cake, D." My chest ripped apart. That note wasn't just hers. Dominic had been here, in my kitchen, sitting in my chair, at our table, meant for two. That sweetness wasn't mine alone. From then on, I began to notice more. One morning, on the way to work, I stopped at the cafe near her law school. The barista, who knew me, smiled. "Another latte for your wife? She always comes in with Dominic. They're so cute together." I froze, forced a smile, nodded. But inside, I collapsed. A stranger had just confirmed what I was trying so hard to deny. Walking out, my hands shook so badly I dropped the coffee. Hot liquid splashed on the pavement. But I didn't feel pain. The only burn I felt was in my chest. That night, the real storm hit. I came home early, brought sushi, her favorite, hoping we could sit, talk, like we used to. But as I walked in, her phone lit up on the table. A message glowed on the screen. "Thanks for tonight. You were amazing, D." I froze, hands trembling, heart pounding. Everything inside me turned to ice. She stepped out of the bathroom, hair still wet. Saw me holding her phone. Her eyes widened, shock, then quickly hidden. "What are you doing with my phone?" she snapped. I swallowed hard. "Dominic, do you have something to tell me?" The silence was suffocating. I waited for a confession, a tear, a hand reaching for mine. But instead, she folded her arms, sighed. "You're too suspicious. That text? It was just a joke." I looked straight into her eyes. "A joke? To you, maybe. But to me, this is our marriage." We sat on opposite ends of the sofa, a wall of silence between us. Then she whispered, each word cutting like a blade, "Maybe you're not the only one who understands me anymore, Brian." Her voice was soft, but it tore me apart. I didn't scream. I didn't curse. I just sat there, fists clenched so tight, my palms bled. From that moment, I knew part of my heart had already broken. After the fight, she slept in another room. I stayed in the dark, the dim lamp glowing over emptiness. On the table, the sushi I brought, untouched. I opened the box. The raw smell hit me. I forced a crooked smile. Bitter. From then on, our house felt like a cheap hotel. She came home late, left early. I went to work in silence. No one asked. No one answered. Conversations disappeared. We existed side by side, but 1,000 miles apart. One evening, as she was about to leave for another study group, I asked, "Are you sure it's really study?" She turned back, her eyes cold. "If you don't trust me, then stop asking." The door slammed. That sound hit harder than any rejection. A week later, I made my choice. I had to know the truth. That night, I stood across the street, watched her walk into a small cafe with Dominic. They sat close, shared a slice of cake, laughed. Her eyes sparkled, the same eyes that once only looked at me. I stood in the drizzle, clothes soaked, watching. I didn't take pictures. I didn't move. I just stood there, a ghost outside the glass. And in that moment, I knew I was no longer the center of her world. I was just a spectator. In a play, I once thought I was the lead. So I turned, walked away. Rain pouring down, blending with the tears I didn't bother to wipe. Inside me, one thought echoed. Cold. Clear. I don't know how much longer I can endure. But I know the real storm is still ahead. That night's rain chilled me to the bone, but not as cold as the truth I had just seen. My wife, the woman I once believed would walk with me for life, sat laughing beside Dominic in a warm cafe while I stood outside like a stranger. I came home soaked, hung my wet clothes on the rack, didn't even bother changing. The apartment was dark, the only sound, the ticking clock, steady, relentless. But to me, it sounded like a countdown to the end of our marriage. From that day, the air in the house turned heavy, like fog. We barely spoke, and when we did, it was short. "Did you eat?" "Yeah." One night, I cooked dinner, set 2 plates, out of habit. But she never came home. By midnight, the food was cold. As I cleared the table, I opened the drawer and saw the old handkerchief she once gave me back in college. Edges frayed, colors faded. I gripped it tight, clutching a memory. But instead of comfort, my chest only tightened more. That night, I tried to ask. My voice shook. "Are you happy with us now?" She looked up, tired eyes, and slowly whispered, "I'm exhausted, and maybe you're not the only one who understands me anymore." Her words stabbed deep. I couldn't swallow them. For the first time in years, I snapped. I slammed my hand on the table. The sound cracked through the room. I shouted, my voice breaking. "What about all those years I worked myself to death for you? What does 'not the only one' even mean? Have you forgotten it all?" She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just looked at me, empty eyes, then turned away. That look broke me more than any cruel word. The tension grew sharper, even in the smallest details. One morning, I saw 2 coffee cups on the counter. I knew I'd only made one, the other still warm. I searched the apartment, empty. When she stepped out, startled to see me, I asked, "Was someone here last night?" She stayed silent, then answered, cold, "Stop asking. The more you ask, the farther we drift." No denial, no confession, just silence. I felt erased from my own home. Another day, scrolling through our shared calendar, the one we once filled with little anniversaries, my heart froze. Anniversary dinner? Deleted. Replaced with graduation party, Dominic plus L. My hands trembled. The screen blurred, our memories erased, for their plans. That night, I overheard her on the phone. The door half closed. I almost walked in. Then I heard her laugh. Her sweet voice saying, "Yes, we'll go together. I can't wait for that day." I stopped, heart crumbling. The words echoed in my head. "We'll go together. Not you and me." We now meant her and Dominic. I sank onto the sofa, hands clutching my head. I felt like the third wheel. In my own marriage, I turned into a shadow. Days spent at work, like a robot. Nights staring at a blank screen, hand gripping that old torn handkerchief. Once I opened the closet, reaching for my wedding suit, But inside, I saw a suitcase. Packed, neat, ready. Clothes folded perfectly, waiting to leave. I touched the suitcase. My heart dropped into a pit. I didn't ask. I knew. When someone's prepared an escape, they've already left long ago. The breaking point came on my birthday. I didn't expect much. Just dinner. With her. I bought a cake. Lit a candle. Waited. I texted, "I'm waiting for you." But she never came. Near midnight, a friend sent me a photo from a party. There she was. With Dominic. Glasses raised. Smiling. The smile that should have been mine tonight. I sat before the cake. The candle burned out. Wax dripping down. The room fell into darkness. I laughed. But tears streamed uncontrollably. I couldn't take it anymore. I opened my laptop. Wrote an email. No blame. No anger. Just questions. Do you still love me? Do you want to save this marriage? Or is it already over? The email showed read, but no reply. That silence was crueler than any words. I looked in the mirror. The man staring back, gaunt, hollow eyes, beard unshaven. I didn't recognize him. The man who once believed love could survive anything was now just a broken soul, clinging to scraps. I whispered to myself, "What will I do when the real storm comes?" And as if in answer, my phone buzzed. A calendar reminder lit up. Graduation party. Tonight, 7 p.m. Below it, a note, hosted by Dominic. I stood frozen, heart tightening. I knew. The storm had arrived. The hall was glowing, like another world. White drapes flowing, chandeliers sparkling, soft music blending with laughter. I stepped inside, and my eyes locked on the center. Dominic, arm in arm with my wife. He wore a sharp suit, confident, like he'd walked out of an ad. She held his arm, her smile radiant. A smile I hadn't seen in a long time. Cameras flashed non-stop, capturing every second of them together. I froze at the entrance. The receptionist looked uneasy. My name wasn't on the guest list. But then I said his name, Dominic. Her face lit up. She nodded, handed me a guest pass. Once again, I had to borrow his name to enter the place I should have belonged. The MC's voice snapped me out of it. "Welcome to this year's graduation party. And especially, let's give a big round of applause to Dominic, the main sponsor of tonight." The hall erupted. Dominic took my wife's hand, led her onto the stage. My chest tightened, like someone's fist closing around my heart. The MC continued. Not only did Dominic sponsor this event, he also generously covered tuition for several students, including Lucy. Her name echoed. Applause thundered. I stood there paralyzed. Images crashed in my head. The nights I worked until I collapsed. The weeks of cold noodles. Every dollar saved, just for her dream. I thought I was the one holding it all together. But tonight, it was Dominic being honored. He was the one she looked at, with those shining, grateful eyes. I turned to leave, but then the MC called out, "Wait, we have another special guest. Please welcome Brian." Spotlight hit me. Hands clapped. All eyes turned to the door. I froze for a few seconds, then forced myself to step forward. Dominic extended his hand. Polite smile. "Welcome, glad you're here." I looked at that hand, but didn't take it. Instead, I turned to her. Her face paled. Her smile strained. The MC handed me the mic. "Would you like to share a few words?" My hands shook as I held it, my voice rough. I wasn't planning to speak, but maybe I need to say something. The hall went silent. I drew a breath. My eyes blurred. Sometimes, the true companion isn't the one paying for the party, or the one whose name is celebrated. It's the one who sacrificed quietly, who endured silently, so the person they love could stand here today. But sadly, some things are only seen when it's already too late. From my pocket, I pulled out an old handkerchief, edges frayed. The gift she gave me back in our early days. I set it down on the podium, beside the mic. The hall held its breath. As I turned away, I heard a chair slide. I glanced back. She started to move, lips parting to call my name. But Dominic tightened his grip on her hand, shook his head. She stopped. That moment was the final cut. Her choice was no longer me. I walked down, through the crowd, whispers trailing behind me. "That's her husband." I didn't look back. I pushed the doors open. The cold night wind hit my face. But inside, I felt nothing, just empty. Behind me, a few scattered claps. I couldn't tell if it was pity sympathy, or respect. But the sound clung to me as I stepped into the dark. For the first time, I understood the climax of love is not holding on at all costs. It's knowing when to let go, even under the gaze of the whole world. I left the hall, with scattered claps fading behind me. The night wind cut across my face, cold. But my heart was colder. I drove home in silence. No music, just the low hum of the engine, like the slow breaking of my own heart. The apartment was dark. I turned on the light, sank into the sofa. On the wall, our wedding photo. 2 young faces, smiling, eyes full of faith. I stared for a long time, a lump rising in my throat. The people in that picture weren't us anymore. The door clicked open. She stepped in, evening gown shimmering, heels tapping softly. Her perfume filled the room, familiar, yet foreign. We looked at each other, her eyes hesitant but firm. Why were you there?" she whispered. I kept steady. "Because today was your graduation. I thought, at least I should be there." She bit her lip, lowered her head. I drew a breath. "Lucy, is there anything left you want to tell me?" Silence. Then at last, her voice trembling, "I never wanted it to end this way. But with Dominic, I found things I couldn't find with you anymore." My chest tore open. I choked. "What things?" Her lips quivered, eyes wet. "You sacrificed so much." "Yes, but I still felt alone. I needed someone present, someone who listened. Not just work, work, and more work. With Dominic, I feel seen. I feel heard." Tears streamed down her cheeks. I stood frozen, hands clenched, veins rising. All this time, I thought sacrifice was enough. But what she needed was simpler. A hand to hold, an eye that noticed her weariness. And I had missed it. No words, only the clock ticking steadily. She looked at our wedding photo, then slowly slipped the ring off her finger. Her hand shook, but she didn't stop. The ring hit the table, metal against wood. The sound, sharp, like a blade carving into me. The silence that followed suffocated me. I wanted to scream, to beg, to cry. But all I did was watch, burning that image into memory. At last my voice rasped, "So, what do you want now?" Her answer was soft, eyes blurred with tears. "I think we should end it. Staying will only hurt us both." Morning came. I woke to silence. She sat at the table. Before her, the wedding frame. Empty. The photo removed. Beside it, our house keys. "I'm leaving, Brian." "I'm sorry." I stared at the empty frame, at the keys. My throat locked. But I didn't stop her. I knew when someone leaves the keys behind, they've already left long ago. I gave a small nod. She pulled her suitcase to the door. Before leaving, she whispered, "Thank you for everything." The door closed. The sound echoed through the hollow apartment. I sank into the chair, hands clutching my head, tears spilling hot and relentless. Days blurred. I moved like a shadow. Work. Home. An empty room. Everything still there. The sofa, the table, but missing one person. I opened the closet. Found a box of keepsakes. Bus tickets from our first date. Plastic spoons we toasted with in the park. A good luck card for her exam. I carried them to the river. Released the box. Watched it drift away. Carrying memories I no longer had the strength to hold. That night, back home, my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. "Brian, this is Dominic. I know you hate me, but believe me, I'll take care of her." I stared at the screen for a long time, but never replied. There was nothing left to say. Because the battle now wasn't between me and him. It was between me and myself. Late at night, I sat alone in the kitchen. The wall still bore the faint outline, where our wedding photo once hung. I touched that empty space, cold, and I whispered, hoarse, "You're gone, but your laughter still lingers here." And I knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of learning how to live on, with a heart that's shattered, but still beating. When the door closed, the apartment sank into crushing silence. I slid down against the wall, hands clutching my head. Only the ticking clock remained, cold, like the heartbeat of an empty room. The days that followed, I was hollow. Work, home, a bite of food, then staring at nothing. No one to wait for. No one waiting for me. Old habits lingered. 2 coffee cups set out each morning, but one untouched. And that was when I knew it was time to put it away. One evening, cleaning the closet, I dropped a small notebook. Inside, her handwriting. "Thank you for believing in me. I won't let you down." The shaky, naive words from her first days in law school. I sank to the floor, clutched the notebook to my chest, and for the first time in weeks, I cried out loud, heavy, broken, like tears that had been trapped for too long. That was the moment I understood. This love was truly over, and accepting that truth was the first step to breathing again. Slowly, I began to rearrange my life. I didn't erase the past. I placed it where it belonged. Keepsakes gathered in a wooden box. Not in sight, but not thrown away. Because even pain is part of who I am. I walked more, breathed more, spoke with colleagues, said yes to coffee with friends. Once, I thought sacrifice was enough. Now I know, sometimes what people need most is presence. A friend asked me, "If you could go back, what would you do differently?" I sat in silence, then answered, "I would listen more." Instead of thinking providing was the same as loving. That thought echoed in me. Love is not carrying the whole weight alone. It's walking together, seeing each other. Late at night, I sat in the kitchen, the wall still marked, where our wedding photo once hung. I hung the empty frame back, not to hold on, but to remind myself, some things are gone, and never return. I set a cup of coffee on the table, put on my coat, and stepped outside. For the first time, I walked out into the night, without fear. I knew I'd return tomorrow. Life would go on. But tonight, I needed the air. I needed to remind myself, the world is bigger than my pain. And if you're watching this now, past midnight, with your heart bleeding from a love that's gone, I want to tell you this. You are not alone. I've been there, in a dark room, thinking I'd never stand again. But piece by piece, I learned to move forward. Cry if you must. Keep the keepsakes if you want. But don't forget, you still have yourself. And you deserve the sunrise ahead. She is no longer in my life, but I'm grateful that she once was. Because through her, I learned to look inward, to love myself, and to forgive. Not for the one who left, but for me. I whispered softly, pressing my hand against the empty wall. Thank you, and goodbye. Then I walked outside, leaving behind the cup of coffee, still steaming on the table, like a quiet promise that tomorrow I'll return, a little stronger,